Okay, Mr. Butler. The community board approved this bill, the community board approved that bill. So tonight we're going to talk about most of the buildings that are going up in Bedford, Stuyvesant, those that have come before us, and the different programs that they fall under. So there's a difference between a rezoning and a ULURP and an MIH and a fresh project. Some of them we vote on, some of them we actually don't vote on. So the committee members are going to go through, they have like 7 presentations, they're going to go through each particular program. So you have a full understanding as to what is it that we engage in as a committee for community board when it comes to housing and land use. But before I continue, I want to acknowledge some of our special guests that are come here this evening. First and foremost, I have to acknowledge some call her the Queen of Bedford Stuyvesant. And that's the appropriate title. Ladies and gentlemen, she is the Kings County Vice Chair of the Brooklyn Democratic Party, our very own, the Honorable Annette M. Robinson. Our former Assemblywoman and former City Council member also. Also want to acknowledge from Bethany Baptist Church, Reverend Dr. Lacey. Also Reverend Tillman. From the Attorney General's office, I want to acknowledge Mr. Darrell White. From the New York City Comptroller Scott Springer's office, Mr. Nicholas Perry. From Assemblywoman Tremaine's right office, Mr. Maceo Carrell. Representing the Brownstones of Bedford Stuyvesant, Ms. Lynette Rogers. President of 500 Men, Mr. Wayne Devonish. I also want to acknowledge from Bridge Street, also a member of CB3, Ms. Oma Holloway. So I'm just going to go over a little housekeeping rules. Oh, right in my face. Here from Borough President Eric Adams' office, Mr. Richard Barrett. I believe that's everyone. So we're going to go over a little housekeeping rules before I pass it on to our chair. Please put all phones on vibrate. We are recording and we're live streaming this meeting. Okay, everybody follow the rule about fill up the seats in the front. Y'all follow that rule. Okay. Questions and answers will be at the end, after all of the presentations, okay? After all of the presentations. We put our index cards with pencils on the tables. If you have a question, please write your question down on the index cards. We will collect them as the meeting is going on. If you have more than one question, use another card. No need to put your name on the card. We will collect the cards, as I stated, the committee members will collect the cards, and then we will read off the questions from your cards, and we will try to answer to the best of our ability. And also, time may not allow for all questions to be answered, okay? So, we're going to get started now, but I just want to now once again thank everyone for coming out, especially with the rain, because it's pouring out there right now. So thank you so much for coming out. Now I'm going to turn it over to the chair of Community Board 3, Mr. Richard Flatow.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. My name is Richard Flatow. I've been a member of the Community Board for about 13 years. I'm a community resident, business owner, and I would also like to welcome you on behalf of Community Board 3 and its members to this town hall meeting. The role of the Community Board is to advocate with local elected officials and with the various government agencies that affect the quality of life and delivery of services in Bedford Stuyvesant. Tonight, our goal is to educate and inform the community and to make some complex subjects related to the development of our community plain. So if you could just tell 3 people, make it plain. The management guru, Dr. John Maxwell, has said that everything rises and falls on leadership. So I would like to start off by thanking the leadership of the Housing and Land Use Committee. Simone Pratt, Second Vice Chair. Ellen Miller, Registered Architect, First Vice Chair. And of course, the Chair, Steve Finger. So we're all volunteers here on the community board. So the presenters tonight are members of the community board, and they have spent countless hours in preparation, as you can see with that bound document that you all given. All of these people have really arduously volunteered their time on behalf of the community. Now, I would also like to thank Mr. Butler for all the detail work that he's done in support of the committee work. And he's gone above and beyond in putting in time for this event, way beyond his scheduled hours. So let's give Mr. Butler. I'm so proud of the work that this community board does. And as I pointed out, all volunteers don't receive any compensation. We're one of 59 community boards throughout the city. But we're different in a lot of ways. For one, we have a Veterans Committee, which I don't believe is a Veterans Committee on any other community board throughout the city. We've also decided to allocate resources for staff and board member training and development. And I guess, Mr. B-Rack, are you aware of any other community boards that have done that in Brooklyn?
I am not aware.
Right, so we're unique in that sense also. We really believe in training and development of our board members as well as the staff. Finally, as you're going to see tonight, we're committed to uplifting the community by providing high-quality training and education so that community members can fully understand and participate in shaping the future development of Bedford Stuyvesant. I just want to say a brief word about planning because it's so crucial and vital for the future of any community. And the people in my office know that one of my favorite quotes on planning I have up in my office is from Habakkuk, the Old Testament prophet. And he said, write the vision, make it plain upon tablets, so they may run who read it. For still the vision awaits its time. It hastens to the end, it will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come, it will not delay. So that's one of the things that really is in my fiber about planning. The chair for tonight's event is a longtime resident of Bedford Stuyvesant. She and her husband, the late Dr. Sam Penn, raised their family in this community. In addition to many other outside interests, the chair for this event has been a member of Community Board 3 for, I think, about 15 years? More. So in addition to being the chair of the Housing and Land Use Committee, she wears a couple of other hats. She's also the treasurer for Community Board 3, and she is also the parliamentarian for Community Board 3. So she is one of the hardest working women in Bedford Stuyvesant. So please, let's put our hands together and give a round of applause for Cynthia Doris Penny.
Thank you, Mr. Plateau. Wow. I feel a little bit like the minister who has to do the eulogy after it's all been said, and then what do I say? But my own pastor always said, it may have been said, but I didn't say it. Again, I want to welcome you all here tonight to our town hall. The Housing and Land Use Committee of the Community Board 3 is probably one of the most active committees. We meet 40 times a year, and on those 40 times, and sometimes more, on those 40 times, we have 2, 3, sometimes 4 presentations each meeting of developers who come and want to present their developments, which fall under a number of things. One of the things I wanted to make clear is that with the development that goes on, Community Board only deals with those developments that in some way have a connection with the city of New York. So if it doesn't have a connection with the city of New York, then they don't come before us. But we have a lot of developments. And we looked at our list one day, and the list was so long of things that are taking place now. Not all of them have started yet, have not, some of them are shoveled in the ground, some of them, even have some that are finished and have come to us recently. But we want to show on the map where we have our current developments. They're small, but there are about 50 developments on that map. You will see that they are different colors because they represent different kinds of development, and they represent under the programs under which they fall. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the programs of the New York City Planning Commission and the Human Housing and Development Corporation. The programs that fall under them and those programs that have come to us. First, we're going to start with the framework, the groundwork for all development, which is zoning, and that's going to be presented by Ellen Miller.
Hello, everyone. Hi, is that good? Okay. My portion of tonight's presentation is a brief description of zoning, which very simply stated is the overriding law or code that regulates the use of all land and buildings in New York City. Every lot, public or privately owned in New York City, has a zoning designation determined by the New York City zoning resolution. In Bedford, Stuyvesant, there are 4 zoning categories. Let's see if I can make this work. Residential, commercial, manufacturing, and community facilities are sort of a special category. The 4th use is actually park. Community facilities like schools, museums, houses of worship, and sometimes mixed use can be accommodated in any of these 3 zoning categories. This slide shows the CD3 portion of the zoning map, where you can find the given zone of any particular location. Yellow is residential here, light red would be manufacturing, and the darker red is strictly commercial. Although nothing in zoning is strictly anything. Let's see. Zoning regulates the form or the shape of the development. It can be low, medium, or high, depending on the zoning designation of the site. So zoning determines the height, the size, the shape, the allowable use, and any parking associated with a particular lot. In Bedford Stuyvesant, the majority of residential and commercial properties were redesignated over the past decade to be within contextual zones with height restrictions intended to maintain the existing neighborhood's scale. So this is an example of what contextual zoning can look like. It allows for new development, but in contextual zones, there are maximum height restrictions. The continuous street wall is retained, and new curb cuts for driveways are generally disallowed. When a private owner of a site elects to build within the existing zoning laws, it's considered to be an as-of-right development. With as-of-right development, it's not necessary for the developer to seek additional approval of City Planning Commission, of the local community board, or of any other outside party. If the development complies with the applicable zoning laws currently in force, the developer is entitled to build. Most new and altered buildings are constructed as of right. There we go. This is an example of an as-of-right development at 1247 Atlantic Avenue. If a developer seeks to go beyond the as-of-right regulations within a certain zone and wants to modify the as-of-right requirements for a particular project, he or she may apply through the buildings department for consideration of a special permit or a variance. The application for a special permit comes before the local community board for comments, but final approval of the request sits with the New York City Bureau of Standards and Appeals. In the case at 1247 Atlantic, which is right near Nostrand, there's a new 10-story as-of-right apartment building. It's nearly finished, it's up. And now at this point, the owner has requested a special permit to add a swimming pool at the ground level. There would be no change to the existing zoning proposed, but a swimming pool in that zone, which happens to be R60, is only allowed by a special permit. The other building we have here as an example is one of a zoning change at 895 Bedford Avenue, which is right at Willoughby. There's an existing Shell gas station. So if a developer such as that wants to exceed or completely change the requirements set by the existing zone of the site, it's done by means of a zoning change. The application was filed by the owner to rezone the gas station to change it from a manufacturing zone into a residential zone. The application was presented to CD3, you may have been there, at a public hearing, and then approved by City Council after that this year. So the site will now allow for a 7-story, 36-unit apartment building. It does have retail at the ground level. Special permits and zoning changes in private development are very difficult to accomplish. Property owners must demonstrate that the changes make sense in the context of surrounding uses and the existing zoning designations. So to do that kind of a zoning change requires a uniform land use review process, also known as ULURP, and Simone will describe the steps of that process.
Thank you, Ellen. So we are tag teaming on this topic. Oops. Okay. So first of all, I'm very excited to see so many of us out here tonight to learn about different issues that are facing us in terms of current and future housing development in our community. It's important to learn as much as we can about these topics, to stay abreast and informed, and importantly empowered by everything that we're going to learn tonight. Knowledge is power. And it's important just to, when we go to meetings, just be well versed and know all the different acronyms that you may hear. And there's a lot of acronyms. So let me unpack one acronym, ULURP. What is ULURP, you may ask? So what ULURP is, it stands for Uniform Land Use Review Procedure. So it's a standardized procedure where applications affecting the land use of the city are publicly reviewed. So basically, it's the way that the city changes policy on land and on developments. So it involves a series of consultations and meetings that occur during a certain set period of time and days. They occur on the community and borough levels, and they're also followed by binding decisions by the mayor and the city council. So what I'm going to do is take you through the process of how a ULURP process sort of flows in a flow chart. Okay, so first, we're going to start with an application is filed. So a developer files a ULURP application with the Department of City Planning, and then a copy is sent to the affected community board, such as Community Board 3. So then we would get it. From there, the developer submits all necessary paperwork and carries out at least the first steps of any necessary environmental reviews, such as soil, and then the project is certified. 9 days later, that starts, oftentimes you might hear in a meeting, the ULURP clock is ticking. So the community board gets 60 days to review a proposal and must hold a public hearing on it. And the board can either render a decision on the application, and that's advisory, and as an advisory purpose, or do nothing. But either way, the application then moves to the borough president after 30 days. So during this 30-day period, after the community board finishes, the borough president has this 30-day period to review the idea, give his, or in a case, her recommendation, but in our case it's his recommendation to city planning. From there, after 60 days, city planning, which is composed of 7 members selected by the mayor and 6 others that are named by borough presidents or public advocates, they then have 60 days to vote on a proposal. And once that is done, the borough president then weighs in. And in some cases, the borough president may vote no. But there's a supermajority then that might be necessary that's comprised of 9 commissioners that can overrule it. But in most cases, a simple majority rules. So from there, city council automatically reviews some ULURP applications and can choose to weigh in on others. So the land use subcommittee, that's landmarks, planning, zoning, they get a first look. Then the full land use committee weighs in. And then finally, the entire council can consider a proposal. Traditionally, council usually follows the lead of the council member, but usually the body has 50 days to act on a ULURP proposal. So after the council has held its final vote on a plan, the mayor can veto if he, in the case of our mayor, if he acts within 5 days. The council, however, still gets the final word. If the mayor vetoes in the land use decision, the council has 10 days to override it by 2/3 majority vote. It sounds complicated, but it kind of follows this process for checks and balances purposes. So I'm going to share with you 2 examples of developments that have been or will be under the ULURP process. So the first one is 1618 Fulton Street, this one right here. So I'll give you a little summary of what the project overview is. So it's a new 14-story mixed-use building. It is comprised of 235 affordable rental housing units. In terms of the commercial floor area, sorry. So this one, 1618 Fulton Street, apologies. Let me give you some details on this one. So this one is an This one is an 11-story mixed-use building with affordable and market rate rental apartments. It also has outdoor space and the ground floor retail space. And it is a mid-block site on Fulton Street. It is near Herkimer and Albany and Troy. And it's comprised of 96 units on the 2nd through 11th floor, and the retail space is on the ground floor. And the amenities of the building include and support spaces in the cellar. So the mixed use rental units are comprised of studios, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartments, and 5% of the apartments are fully compliant with ADA requirements, and 2% are compliant with requirements for hearing impaired. So now I will share with you some details on 1921 Atlantic Avenue. So that one is a new 14-story mixed-use building. It has 235. Sorry about this clicker, guys. It has 235 affordable rental housing units. It has a commercial floor area for grocery on the ground level. And it also has a community facility space. It has things such as aquaponic educational farms, has an art gallery space. It also has a Brooklyn neighborhood services are housed there as well. And 44 below grade parking spaces. So these are 2 examples of developments in our neighborhood that have gone through or are about to go through the ULURP process. So I will now hand it over to Lisa, who's going to talk to you about mandatory inclusionary housing. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for coming out this evening to get this very important information about the future of housing in our community. In this weather, it shows your commitment to the vitality and preservation of communities. And tonight I have the privilege of presenting mandatory inclusionary housing, also known as MIH. MIH is a zoning tool developed by the Department of City Planning and the Department of Housing and Preservation and Development. The mandatory inclusionary housing zoning tool requires developers who benefit from a rezoning to include affordable housing to allow for more housing development, encouraging both housing production and affordability. Affordable housing under this plan would be mandatory, not voluntary. The inclusion of affordable housing would be a condition of residential development when developers build in an area that is zoned for mandatory inclusionary housing. When land is rezoned as part of a private rezoning application in Community Board 3. Affordable housing would also be permanent. There would be no expiration of the affordability requirement of apartments generated through mandatory inclusionary housing. So there are different levels of affordability. A unit is considered affordable when rent and utilities cost no more than 30% of a family's income. Under the proposal, the city's planning commission and ultimately the city council would apply one or both of the following requirements to each mandatory inclusionary housing area. Under option 1, 25% of residential floor area must be affordable for housing residents. Under option 2, 30% of the residential floor area must be affordable for housing units. In addition to options 1 and 2 that were presented on the previous slide, the City Council and the City Planning Commission could decide to apply an additional limited workforce option for moderate or middle income development. The workforce option is 30% of the total residential floor area must be for housing units for residents with a little higher income. The other additional option is the deep affordability option. Under this plan, 20% of the total residential floor area must be for residents with low income. If either the workforce option or the deep affordability option are included, they must be combined with either option 1 or option 2 or both. They cannot stand alone. So here are 2 examples of properties that are in Community Board 3 that fall under the plan. The first one is located at 1134 Fulton Street. This is a new construction which comprises the entire block. The boundaries are Franklin Avenue on the west, Fulton Street on the north, Bedford Avenue on the east, and Brevoort Place at the south. Most of you are familiar with this as the huge building on Franklin and Fulton that is right across the street from the subway station. This is also in an inclusionary housing designated area. This project will be voluntary inclusionary housing. The developer volunteered to include inclusionary housing in order to gain 2 additional floors that will be built on site. The project will include 182 rental units, of which 37 will be participating in the inclusionary housing program. The affordable units will include 7 studio apartments, 27 one-bedroom apartments, 1 two-bedroom apartment, and 2 3-bedrooms. The affordable units will be marketed and leased in accordance with HPD guidelines. This is going to be a 10-story building, mixed use of residential and commercial space, and include a 73-space parking garage. In the cellar of the building, there will be a business center, a fitness center, a residence lounge, a children's playroom, and a pet spa. The building will also include landscape terraces on the 3rd and 10th floors. The second building is located at 376, 378 Flushing Avenue, also known as Rose Castle. This was a rezoning from manufacturing to residential and required to participate in the mandatory inclusionary program. The project will be comprised of 2 separate buildings. The second building will be located at 43 Franklin Avenue and will be 100% affordable. The Flushing Avenue site will be an 8-story mixed-use residential and commercial building. The 80-foot tall building will provide 168 dwelling units and an 84 parking spot garage. The garage entrance will be on Franklin Avenue, and the building will have a retail space on Flushing on the ground floor, and on Little Nassau Street, there will be a central courtyard. The Franklin Avenue site is the all-affordable site, 100% affordable, and it will be a 6-story residential building. The 70-foot tall building will have 128 residential units and a 64-space parking garage. The entrance to the garage will be located on Franklin Avenue. There will also be a central courtyard that will be located above the garage. So that concludes my presentation, and next up we have Abby, who will be talking about the NIHOP program. Thank you.
Before she starts, if anyone has written any questions on the index cards, raise your hands so I can come collect them, okay? Raise your hands high. Good?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So what we're talking about here today is the New Infill Homeownership Opportunities Program, which is better referred to as NIHOP. This essentially is a development project. It's managed by HPD, and it's primarily for middle-income, mid-level homeowners. It's basically a homeownership project for middle income, not low income, but middle income.
general middle income workforce. Who are we talking about? Sponsors. The sponsors are basically the developers. And they're responsible for purchasing the land, typically for $1 if it's city-owned. And then there's an appraisal that goes along with the land that they then get a mortgage for. And then there's the expense of the actual construction and the development of the project, of which then is another mortgage or expense for the sponsor. Once the construction is complete, initially, before I get to that, they're responsible for making sure that the sites are designed properly, that it's safe, efficient, etc. Once the construction projects that are complete, that is then sold to a homeowner. Now, there are certain qualifications for the homeowner that they have to go through as it relates, let me just go back. As it relates to their income, they have to go through certain application process. And they also have to commit to being in the home for 20 years. And if it's a multi-use project, they can rent, like if it's a 2-family or 3-family or more, they can rent the other areas of their home, but they have to make sure that those renters are also middle income. They cannot be below the standards that they needed to purchase the home. The lots are typically small lots, 1, 2, and 3 families. And then there's some larger lots that are 14 families or more, or 14 units, I should say. And very often those are co-ops or condominiums. And just to go back, you're seeing pictures of some of the properties, some of the projects we have going on here in Bedford, Stuyvesant. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more. The projects are broken into clusters. You have cluster 1, cluster 2, cluster 3. It's Herkimer, Sidham, did I say that right, Doris? Because I've always been putting this in that street up. Sidham, Ralph Avenue, we have Decal Commons, and we have 687A. Go back, sorry. Good job. So 687A Hancock is a smaller project, it's in its beginning stages, and it's in its beginning stages, I'll just leave it as that. And let me see if I'm missing anything else. And it's multi-level, and it's just one building. Just to go back, I'm going back on purpose now, where we talked about cluster 1, 2, and 3. So Herkimer, let me just get this. I will look at my notes because I want to make sure I get it right. There's a Rochester Sidham project, and that essentially the streets of Ralph, Rochester, Sidham, and Herkimer. And that's all one developer, and it covers clusters 1, 2, and 3. That's one developer. It's 11 lots. Some are larger lots, larger units, where they have 20 units or 32 units. Some are smaller units. All of them are vacant at this time. That's cluster 3, that's the Ralph. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about Decal Commons. This is a different developer. It's Restoration, actually, in St. Nick's. That's the developer there. It's 3 sites, 2 along Decal and 1 along Fulton. And that is also vacant. And there we have, many of those units are elevators. It's efficient, and I did say it's vacant already. And I think that's it. Did I miss anything? Let me just see. Yep, that's pretty much it. Thank you. And next is going to be Orlando discussing supportive housing.
Once again, if you have a question, please write on the index card and raise your hand high, and I'll collect it from you. Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Mrs. Butler. I just want to thank Mr. Butler and let's give a hand to Mr. Butler and Ms. Penn for putting this thing together. Without them, it would have been a very interesting class. Now, I want to begin this presentation with a different type of spin. I want everyone to imagine that our most vulnerable population all over the city have housing. Then I want you to imagine that as they come into this location, they get supportive services in order to be public servants or to be whatever they want to be in our community. This is what I'm doing, is supportive housing. I'm going to try and go back. This is supportive housing. Supportive housing, we're going to be talking about what is supportive housing, when was it created, what is the vision and the mission in supportive housing, how does it work, how are the stakeholders, who are the stakeholders, the benefits, and what are the future plans of supportive housing. So I'm going to first talk to what is supportive housing. So in my research, I saw that when I was going through all the information about supportive housing, I saw that it was a policy that was enacted to reduce homelessness among our most vulnerable population. And going further, there was a type of formula that came from Rutgers University, what is permanent supportive housing. And it's about having deep, affordable housing coupled with supportive services like HPD or NYCHA, not NYCHA, but dealing with HRA, all the different supportive housing and social services, and then giving them that permanent involvement to be a home person in our community, meaning that they're paying rent, meaning that they're integrated within the community. That's a key word, integrated. As I was doing my research, I found out that supportive housing was actually created in 1990. And it's a partnership with city and state for making sure that there are no homeless people or people of supportive issues most vulnerable in our city. It's called New York Plan. The vision is to eliminate all homelessness. And the mission was also to have 9,000 units within the city. Now I'm going to talk about how does it work. Supportive housing is a model that was classified into two groups. There's a single and there's a scattered site. The single congregate site is a centralized approach in order to house our most vulnerable people. They will be in the building, and within the building, there'll be supportive services for wellness, whether we're dealing with any issues that you're having, and it's supposed to help them with their social, educational, and medical, mental health needs. The scattered site version is more of like a voucher 8 system, section 8, where people are able to take housing from different areas and be able to stand on their own. So now I'm going to talk about the 4 core principles dealing with supportive housing, and it's built around the needs of the most vulnerable communities. The first thing is property housing. So there's 4 different pillars that support supportive housing. I'm going to do the 2 right here, which is property housing and medical mental health supporting services. So property housing meaning it's 24/7 concierge. They make sure that there's security all around the building. They're carefully screened by their landlords. Not anyone can be in the supportive housing unit. And in addition to that, they're supposed to pay 30% of their income towards supportive services in that building. They get a legal lease, so they are a legal tenant. Now, moving towards the medical mental health supportive services, they access wellness, nutrition, health awareness, and medical care and counseling. So now the 4th one, with the screening, the other 2 pillars are employment and vocational support and community outreach engagement. So the employment vocational support gives employment services, vocational educational training, life skills training, personal finance. These particular services also help them to pay their rent on time, help them to budget on time, making sure that they are involved with their community on a fiscal level and in a correct level. Then they have the community outreach engagement, community development, street cleanup, block associate parties, participate in business improvement districts, and they build and offer meeting rooms for community board people that might want to have meetings inside that particular facility. Now I'm going to talk about the stakeholders. So in my research, I found out that supportive housing, the policy of bringing this into existence, is one of the most comprehensive policies to date. It encompasses almost 12 different New York City agencies. One of them is the mental health, OTDA, HPD, and DHS. So they all combine together in order to support the services that these people need. In addition to that, the stakeholders will be faith-based organizations, churches, mosques, synagogues, and in addition to that, Community Board 3 or community boards are also considered to be part of those stakeholders. A little bit about the benefits that I did when I did my research is that I found out that with putting this together, supportive services when a person that is in a supportive service unit, they will be an economic contributor to the community that they're involved in, because they would have to be able to buy supplies or buy food or whatever the services that are in the area. And it also offers the opportunity that when the actual building is being built or the facilities are being built, if you're an MWBE certification, if you have something of that, you can participate in the building and the construction and the management of the actual organization. In addition to that, if you have that ability, if you are also a clinical psychologist, or if you deal with life skills, or if you deal in the area of wellness or education, you can probably get opportunities to service these people and also make money for the community. Last thing I wanted to say is that in my research, I found out that according to this research, they said that people that are in stable housing, that it reduces the amount of suicide across the board. That's something to think about. Now we're going to move into the future. So what is this in for me? What is this going to look like? Okay. So the New York policy actually evolved into the New York City 1515, where it's going to be 15,000 supportive units throughout the city, and it's going to be across 15 years. The projected is about 30,000 across the whole entire city. 766 Myrtle is one particular building that's going to be going up, and this is a little bit about the amenities. 100% affordable, 59 units, 9 stories, and 40,000 square feet. Keep in mind what I was talking about, the economic impact. Construction will be focused on qualified MWBE persons. So if you have an MWBE site license or a license, you can participate in this endeavor. So now I want to thank you. I'm going to hand this over to Ms. Yanika, and she's going to talk some more.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. We hear about all this housing, all this terminology, all these things going on, but we cannot forget about our seniors that still live in our communities. Okay. My subject that I'm going to talk about tonight is next generation.
So into the mic, please.
Thank you. My subject that I wanted to talk about this evening is Next Generation NYCHA. Next Generation NYCHA has been formed with NYCHA residents, employees, along with the community and the government regarding the concerns about our growing populations of seniors in the community. Well, we all want our seniors to be well,
safe, living in a clean environment, also have affordable housing. So Next Generation created a, sorry.
Are you trying to go to the next one? Trying to come?
Okay, I didn't touch.
That one? You just probably press that to the center side.
Okay, Next Generation created a plan for the seniors to provide them with 100% affordable housing. One of the plans was to get NYCHA to utilize their unutilized vacant properties and be able to use that for affordable housing. Now, the one that I want to talk about that's going to actually affect Community Board 3 is right here. It's called the Atrium at Sumner. The Atrium at Sumner is going to be built on the current vacant land that's on Sumner Housing. The address is going to be, the address is going to be 43 and 67 Marcus Garvey Boulevard. It's going to be 10 stories high with approximately 190 apartments. 25% are going to be preference to Sumner residents, and 30% is going to be for our homeless set aside. This is going to be 100% affordable. This is why the NYCHA working with HPD is actually trying to produce at least 10,000 units within the next 10 years. So the next is our income guideline. You see here, we're gonna have, I'm gonna start with the formally 30%. You'll have 27 studio apartments, and the income levels are going to be at $18,774,000. And then you'll have the one-bedroom apartments for the 30% formerly homeless. It's going to be the income limit of $23,463,000. Now, our seniors, which is very important to us, they're going to have 101 studio apartments, and their income limit is going to be $29,413. The one-bedroom apartments are going to be the income limit of $36,766, and they're going to have 31 available. There are going to be a lot of amenities as well for the atrium. First of all, it's going to be a passive standard house, which means it's going to have a lot of solar panels. It's going to be very energy efficient. It's going to have a lot of things that are going to be there, like including night lights that will be at the lower part of their apartments to help them guide through. There are going to be light sensors in here. So if they need help and they're not able to call for help, they'll be able to do so. Also, it's going to have a ground floor community facility. And then they're also going to have a fitness room, a yoga room. They're also going to have Wi-Fi throughout the whole building, so that anyone who comes and visits or anyone, I'm not sure exactly how that's going to be, but I guess they'll be able to tell you the password if you're visiting someone there or if you're with them for the course of the day. They're also going to have a computer room, a Skype room, 2 laundry rooms, and another residential community room with a second floor terrace. Also, with this building that's being built, they're going to have an atrium where it's indoors and it's just for the residents, where they don't have to go outside, but you're not enclosed. So you know how when you go to the malls and you're able to look up to the second floor and you're still downstairs, but you can see somebody from upstairs? Well, if you have neighbors throughout the building, you're going to be able to see those neighbors, and you're going to say, hey, good morning, how are you? Or good evening, or have little conversations. They're going to have little stands sitting outside so that you'll be able to, communicate and also talk with your neighbors that may be living inside the atrium with. Then you're going to have an urban garden, and the community space is also going to be utilized by the current people that are living at Sumner Housing. So the next picture is going to be, this is how the actual building is going to be looking like when it's completed. And any further questions, you can Speak with Ms. Smith. And next we'll be speaking about Fresh Markets by Bedford. I'm gonna try and work the clicker. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. The good news is I'm the last presenter, so at least everyone can wake up now. I'm the last presenter. Okay, so today I'm here to talk about the FRESH program and how it benefits our community. A 2009 study in New York City showed a widespread shortage of neighborhood grocery stores, with low-income neighborhoods having the highest needs. FRESH was created to offer developers and/or supermarket owners incentives to expand fresh supermarkets in underserved neighborhoods. Currently, there are about 15 priority neighborhoods, and Bedford Stuyvesant is one of them. What's the goal of the Fresh Market? The goal is to encourage the development and the retention of convenient, accessible stores that provide fresh meat, fruit and vegetables, and other perishable goods, in addition to a full range of grocery products. The program also requires a continued commitment to operate a fresh food store, which basically means once a fresh market, always a fresh market. It's going to permanently remain a fresh market. Okay, so the FRESH program promotes the establishment and the expansion of grocery stores in underserved communities by lowering the cost of owning, developing, and renovating retail space. Basically, these are the incentives that they offer to developers to come to our neighborhoods and provide these grocery stores. These are some of the few financial incentives that they offer them. They said, if you come and you build grocery stores that we need in our neighborhood, we'll lower your property taxes, we'll eliminate the sales tax on construction material, and we'll maybe decrease the mortgage recording tax when you purchase the building. But more importantly, to be honest with you, I think the zoning incentives are pretty attractive to the developers. One of the zoning incentives for them is in a mixed-use building, an additional square foot of residential floor area may be permitted for every square foot of fresh food store. Well, what does that mean? That means there's a 1-to-1 ratio of square feet of fresh market versus residential floor area. So for example, if a developer wants to build a 5,000 square foot supermarket on the ground floor, he gets an additional 5,000 square feet of residential space. Not a bad deal. Well, what do they need to do? What do the developers need to do? These are their requirements in order to apply to become a fresh market, for the fresh market requirements. So they have to own or lease the space. I mean, that's definitely what they have to do. The space has to be at least 5,000 square feet, at least 500 square feet dedicated to produce, located in one of the priority neighborhoods like ours, Bedford Stuyvesant, at least 30% of the floor area dedicated to perishable items, so on and so forth. Since the beginning of the program, 20 fresh markets have been approved and over 940 new jobs were created citywide. How does this help us? This is a great example as to how the fresh market benefits our community. Currently, along the Myrtle Avenue corridor, CB3 expands from Myrtle Avenue in Classen to Myrtle Avenue on Broadway. Right now, the only supermarket along Myrtle Avenue, along the corridor, is at 1102 Myrtle Avenue, the Food Bazaar, right? Somebody said, right? So this program is going to help alleviate the burden of everyone having to go all the way down to Myrtle. So right now, we have 2 fresh markets coming along Myrtle Avenue. One at 859 Myrtle Avenue, which is the corner of Myrtle and Marcy. The other one at 948 Myrtle Avenue, which is the corner of Myrtle and True. Because as you know, if you've been along Myrtle Avenue, they've closed down the Key Food, they've closed down the Western Beef. Like, where else is everyone gonna go? And you know, we have the Marcy housing, the Sumner housing, the Tompkin housing, along with all the multiple family houses along Myrtle Avenue. So this will help alleviate the burden of them having to only go to one supermarket. So this is an example of one of the fresh markets that are coming. This is 859 Myrtle, the corner of Myrtle and Marcy. If you can see at the bottom of the building, there's a really beautiful design fresh market coming. So that's kind of potentially what it would look like. And that's what's before us at CB3. So thank you guys. Coming, and up next will be Ms. Penn, and she'll discuss future developments.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's give all of our presenters. So we went from laying the groundwork that Ellen took us through, and the process for the approval that Simone took us through. And then we talked about affordable housing that's mandatory. Thank you, Lisa, for that presentation. And after having affordable apartments, we have home ownership, 1, 2, and 3 family homes, and co-ops and condominiums. Thank you for that presentation, Abby. Our vulnerable population we've taken care of it as well with a wonderful presentation by Orlando. And our seniors, okay, we didn't forget our seniors. And that wonderful, marvelous building that they're going to have on Sunday. Thank you so much, Yoniki, for that. And the fresh market. It's not, okay, let me explain something about the fresh markets. The fresh market buildings come to the community board, to the land use committee, but it comes to us only for a notification of the fresh market. But we don't stop there. We start there, and we go through the entire development to ensure that the development that they're building is going to be right for our community as well. But where do we go from here? We have 3 parcels of land that you're probably very familiar with. You pass it all the time, and you wonder what's going to happen with this land, this vacant land that's been out there for so long. The first one in Saratoga Square is on Fulton Street starting at Saratoga. It's a huge lot, it's about 19 lots. And there's 2 others in that section as well, on Fulton and Howard, and then on Fulton between Howard and Ralph. That's one project that's coming. Another one are the tennis courts at Fulton and Utica. So that's been used, primarily now it's being used for skateboarders. There's skateboarding in there, but there can be another use. I won't say a better use, that's good use for skateboarders, but another use for that property. And the third one, which is also a huge lot, is on Myrtle Avenue. And that's Myrtle Avenue between Marcy and those. And that's going to be shared with the supportive housing that Orlando talked about. That's also going to be a part of that. Now, how can we be a part of what's happening in the future? HPD now has an initiative to engage the community in dialogue and participation on what's going to happen on those 3 lots. And so, excuse me, just one more before I get my information. So there will be a resource fair and a workshop that will take place on June 26th. You can mark the calendars for this. On June 26th, it's going to be at PS 28, which is on Hercules Street. It's right behind the multi-service building. It's actually part of that building, which is between Saratoga and Howard. And that will be a listening and a participatory session where they are looking for the community to come with your ideas about what you would like to see on those parcels. It's a great opportunity. This process started, I think, in late March, and this process is going to go through the end of the year, and it's going to end with an RFP that will be put out to developers based on the information that has been gathered for those 3 lots. Finally, we're going to have those lots developed. Oh, the time at 6:30, from 6:30 to 8:30 on June 26th at PS 28 on. Okay, right. The flyers are outside on the table, so you can take one with you and you can have it for your reference. So I want to thank the hard-working committee, the Housing and Land Use Committee, before we get into our questions. So those members of the committee who are here, please stand. Members of the Housing and Land Use Committee. Thank you very much. And now I'll turn it back over to Henry Butler for questions and answers.
Good evening again, everyone. So, all the flyers that are out there, I hope I don't see them when the meeting is over with. Those flyers are there for you guys to take them with you, give out to your neighbors, your family, people on your block, your building. In other words, we're using you to spread the information about what's going on within CB3, and particularly what's going on when it comes to housing. So please take those flyers with you, and all those flyers, give them out, on your block or in your building. So now we're going to get to the questions that were written down on the card. We hope to try to get through all of them. We're actually doing good timing right now. So, first question. Are any of these developers offering anyone the opportunity to purchase a unit, or are these all rentals? Are any of these developers offering anyone the opportunity to purchase a unit, or are these all rentals?
I'll answer where I can. I'm sure Doris will jump in. These are home ownership. These are not rentals. The homeowners get them.
But they asked about all of them. They want to know all of them. Some there are, but yours isn't.
Okay, the ones I discussed were home ownership. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. The ones I discussed were home ownership, and if they're multi-dwellings, then those homeowners can then rent out their units for the same level of income that they purchased it for. In other words, they can't rent to someone at a lower level income than they are. However, NIHOP in general are also rentals, but what we discussed tonight was about home ownership. So if you're asking if NIHOP project has rentals, the answer is yes. Does that answer the question? No. Okay.
So most of the projects are rental, but the NIHOP Neighborhood Infill Housing Opportunity Program, that's a home ownership program. So NIHOP is home ownership. And those are gonna be 2 and 3 family homes where you will have to purchase, get a mortgage, and then we'll have rental units to help you pay towards your mortgage. But it's a home ownership program.
Okay.
So I'm clear that there are some of them that are home ownership opportunities. That's a lot of rentals, and there are a lot of people here who actually would like to purchase, not here, it's in the neighborhood, who would like to purchase it as opposed to renting. So I was wondering if the developer is willing to consider maybe having some of those, have an opportunity for purchase instead of all the rentals. There's no money going back, it's like money going.
Some of these projects that we're talking about, these are all not being done on city land. Some of these projects are private development. So that developer has that choice whether he wants to do rental, co-op, condo. At this time, they are choosing to do a lot of rentals. So that's what we are. But the NIHOP, that is a home ownership program, and that's actually, there's a great opportunity with that NIHOP. So there are 3. Oh, go ahead, you go.
No, I just want to say that, in addition to the 1, 2, and 3 family homes, there will be, multiple dwellings. And so those will be co-ops or condominiums. So there is an opportunity also to buy an apartment as opposed to buying a full home.
No, we gotta do the cards. Next question is, how do we guarantee that affordable housing units in these new developments remain affordable? You couldn't hear that? Oh.
So under the mandatory inclusionary housing program, it's in the name, so it is mandatory and it is permanent. All the apartments will remain affordable under the guidelines that are presented. So that's the guarantee because of the way the program is run in different cities. It's not mandatory, but in New York City, it is mandatory and it is permanent.
Just keep jumping up. But it's somewhat like the rent stabilization program. You have to register the apartment, the rent for the apartment, and it doesn't change unless you're an unscrupulous landlord. You got a few of those, but that's the way the apartment is registered, the rental, and it stays that way in perpetuity.
Gonna read this next one. Is there anything being done about the property tax rates becoming unaffordable? Affordable housing only seems to apply to renters. You wanna take that one, Mr. Plateau?
Okay, that wasn't something that was really covered.
Right. That's why I said no to you.
The property taxes is one of the main forms of revenue for the city government. So they have sales taxes, they have income taxes, and they have property taxes. It has to also, and the former assemblywoman could add something to this, but the rates also have to get approved by Albany. So even if the city council decides on a particular rate, it still has to get approved by Albany. But basically, they're setting the rates in order to balance the budget and in order to meet certain priorities such as supportive housing, which requires subsidies. So, if people want a lot of services, there has to be some way to finance them. The main forms of revenue for the city would be, again, the sales tax, income tax, and the property tax. Now, I know there's, some efforts to reform and maybe to look at the different levels depending on classes of properties too. It's very complicated, but I don't know if that answers the person's question, but that's all I can say about it. I don't know if the former assembly member wants to add it. That's a hot potato, right?
I mean, I will say that, yeah, property taxes are going up, and, since we're in Bedford, Stuyvesant, mine just went up a little bit. But in comparison to Nassau or Suffolk County, our property taxes are rather low. So,
I want to add something to that. So that's true. Compared to a lot of municipalities, our property taxes are relatively low because in places like Mr. Butler mentioned, Nassau or Suffolk, they depend heavily on property tax for the school system. So you might be paying $10,000, $15,000 a year in property taxes in Nassau or Suffolk.
So next question, this is the number one question we always get. How is the AMI determined? And part B, how does it compare to the AMI of long-term residents of Bed-Stuy? You want to take that?
You can take it.
No. No, you go ahead. That's what y'all do your thing.
So the AMI is determined by the legislature. It's not determined by the developers or the community.
Okay, let me expand on that. AMI is determined by HUD, the federal government, and it encompasses, I think it's about 7 or 8 counties. So in addition to the 5 boroughs in New York, I think it's also Westchester, there's Rockland also, so it's about 7 or 8 counties. And they're not looking at the area median income for Bed-Stuy. They're looking at the area median income for those 7 or 8 counties. So that's how, you could have an AMI for those 7 or 8 counties that could be substantially higher than the incomes in, a particular neighborhood.
So I just want to ask.
So that's the federal government, that's HUD. So the city doesn't have an impact on those AMI rates. It would have to be, the Congress people or the Senate would have to decide they want to come up with some different formula for,
Determine the AMI. So then, our local officials have no say-so on how they determine the AMI.
Yes, I really don't know that, but what I want to know is how does the AMI that has been determined, how does it compare to our AMI in our community?
It's much higher than our
It probably
AMI.
depends on the census tract too. If you go in certain census tracts in Stuyvesant Heights, it may be, lower. So it really depends on what census tract you're talking about within Bedford Stuyvesant as well, in terms of how it compares with the AMI.
We're but no, you gotta understand, we don't have no say so over the AMI.
It's just a problem, we don't have any say, so we have to be comfortable.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Mr. No, we don't disagree with you, but at this time, those are the rules and the laws right now that the federal government, our Congress people, not your council member, not the state officials, but Congress determines the AMI. But I'm gonna let Mr. Barrett from Borough Hall go a little bit more into it.
So New York City is close to around 60% area median income compared to the federal standard. So where there is some play in it, for example, the mandatory inclusionary housing, right? The city brings the AMI down because of the need to make things more affordable. For example, some of the mandatory inclusionary is a 40% average with some tiers slightly higher, slightly lower. So the idea through the MIH was, let's bring the AMIs down to be that much more affordable. And the more we bring it down, we can't have as much affordable housing, but sometimes it's more important to at least have the housing be affordable, whichever affordable housing we have. Where we have more say is on the city on sites. And so on the city on sites, it's a matter of how much subsidy can be provided so we can bring the AMIs down further. Like one of the projects shown, the Myrtle blend of supportive and low income. It's typically very low income availability. Some of the other HPD sites had a wider range. Sometimes we could have many different affordability options so that we balance some higher so we can afford to get more lower. So it's a potpourri of subsidies. So in the city-owned sites, we do best in trying to satisfy local interests.
I just want to add one last thing, so you kind of pointed it out, but the lower the percentages of the AMI, the greater the subsidy would have to be for given units. So there's also fiscal implications to that in terms of people talk about property taxes, sales taxes, income taxes. So if you're providing greater subsidies, it has to come from somewhere as well.
And usually the more subsidy you have, the more subsidized apartments you have, you're actually gonna have less apartments, you know, within that unit. Once they make the subsidy so high, the developer, particularly surprising, and he decides to do low income, he's gonna do only a certain amount, a small amount of low income apartments. And then he's gonna do low income, most likely high income, because the high income has to take care of the low income apartments.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Let me get to these. I gotta keep moving. What plans for senior housing are in process, if any? Well, I think we spoke about the, on some of the grounds of atrium, and those developments right there. Once again, at the June 26th meeting, you have the opportunity to basically, you know, let HPD know what sort of housing you're looking for, and if you're looking for senior housing on these properties, please let them know at this June 26th meeting.
I just want to add one other thing on that. I think the federal government has been pulling back from senior housing. I think it was called 201. 202 housing. So, you know, again, that's another issue where, you know, people don't think that it matters what's happening with the federal government, president, Congress, Senate, et cetera. But it really does, because something like senior housing used to get a lot more production through the 202 program, and that program has shrunk drastically over the years.
Are there any programs for middle income workers to buy and renovate? It would be great for people to be able to develop in their own communities. I mean, that's actually a very good question, because I think a lot of times we focus on low income, which, you know, we have all different income levels within Bedford Stuyvesant. So when you look at the middle, they're the ones actually being squeezed out also, because they don't make enough to afford market rate, but then they make too much to afford the low income developments that are taking place. So I think with the NIHOP for home ownership, which is dealing with moderate, you know, to a medium income individuals, that's a great program for them. And within some of these programs, rental programs, where they have the moderate income levels.
Yeah, unfortunately, we do not deal with, to answer that question, we do not deal with the purchasing of property to renovate. But there are properties out there through other kinds of real estate programs. You need to talk to your real estate.
Yeah, I'll just mention one that I'm aware of. Again, it was a federal program, I think it still exists. That's the 203K loan program. So under that program, you can get money for a purchase and renovation. That's a 203K loan program.
Okay. This question needs to actually be for the tax lien seminar they're having, but how late can you be on your property taxes before your house goes foreclosure? Asking property taxes go up faster than people can keep up with, and developers are trying to get you to sell, and banks and developers are trying to get you to sell. What can you do if you can't pay your taxes?
Okay, I can answer that. I don't think, that wasn't something, again, it wasn't something that was covered tonight, but you can do an installment agreement if you haven't already defaulted on one. They will allow you to do an installment agreement, but you have to get into the Department of Finance prior to the deadline. And I think this year,
Sometime in
the
July.
sale in July, so you know, you can't wait until the last minute. If it's you or if it's somebody that you know, you need to try to get into the Department of Finance. I know in many years past, also the brownstones have done a lot of outreach on tax lien sale, and they bring the Department of Finance here. I know one of the pioneers in doing that was the Honorable Annette Robinson. She was one of the first people after the law went into effect to bring the Department of Finance and DEP. Because you could also go into the lien sale now if you owe money on a water bill, or if you've had an assessment, if the city did your sidewalk or, did some repair, that could also get you into the lien sale. So key thing is you gotta act before the deadline.
They actually had it, the tax lien event last week, they had it. There's supposed to be others coming up. If you go to the community board website or Facebook page, the flyer will be posted. Next question, what are the asking prices for NIHOP properties?
Well, we don't have a price for the properties haven't been developed yet. But how the program works is that the land is going to be sold to the developer for $1. He then has to take out a loan from the bank for construction and also for the land. Those mortgages that the developer takes out will then be passed on to the homeowner, and that's what the homeowner will be paying for. So it's going to vary from property to property. There's not one set price. There are different neighborhoods, there's different size lots, there's different size houses, different amenities, whatever it is that the developer is putting into it, that will all be part of it. And there's a question I see from St. Nick's.
I can just be helpful. Those homeownership projects have to be affordable to middle income households. I'm sorry, I'm Frank Lang, I'm from St. Nick's Alliance. And I just wanted to clarify, the NIHOP program, since the developers are buying the land for $1, the cost of the land is not added, like you would normally do. So there is an income restriction for the buyer. And with an income restriction for rent as well, as what was very well explained, the idea is to make it affordable to moderate or middle income people. Obviously, depending on the credit rating and of the home buyer, but it's not a market rate product. It's supposed to be affordable, whether it's co-op, condo, or 2 or 3 family house.
Can I just add one other thing on that? I think it's gonna be similar like to the Nehemiah homes where there's like a soft second mortgage. So basically what happens is you have to, when you buy it, you're getting a mortgage, but the subsidy amount, which, can vary, could be $300,000, $400,000, that is gonna be a second lien on the property. And it will amortize or get reduced over those 20 years. So let's say if it's $400,000, if you stayed the whole time, you wouldn't have to pay that subsidy back. But if you left after 10 years, you would probably have to pay about half of it back. So it's gonna be a subsidized price, below market price, but there's a subsidy amount that if you leave early, you will have to pay back.
Next question, 1134 Fulton and Franklin is voluntary inclusion. However, under mandatory housing, is it mandatory? Just asking the price. Mandatory, is that?
Yes, so it's mandatory that they participate in the inclusionary housing. They volunteered to participate because they wanted the benefit of the 2 additional floors. But once they receive that benefit, they are now mandated to include affordable housing, and that affordable housing will remain permanent.
Developers for NIHOP purchased the lot for $1? That's the question.
Yes. I'm going to turn it over, Mr. Richard Vera, who's Director of Land Use at the Borough President's Office.
So the whole idea for the $1 sale is written Frank's been a developer, so he'll back up or fill in right if you don't get it all right. But in order to bring the cost down so that it could even be afforded to middle-income households, you don't want to have a developer land cost. So what happens is the city does an assessed value of the land. They didn't do this 20, 30 years ago, but they got smarter. They do assessed value of the land, and then based on that assessed value and the number of units, that assessed value of the land becomes part of that secondary mortgage that was described by Richard. So basically, the homeowner who bought the house, they now have secondary mortgages based on the fact that the developer only paid $1 because the developer paid $1 because really the idea is to keep the costs low. So there's not a tremendous amount of additional subsidies above and beyond the fact that the city sold land for $1. So it's really about trying to make the economics work so we can have an affordable middle-income product with not a whole lot of other subsidies. And if Frank wanted to describe what the other subsidies, they were for no, but okay. So you understand, that is a form of subsidy by not charging beyond $1. You have to charge something for the legal transfer, and that's why it's $1.
Why can't we be given the opportunity?
They used to be.
What happened? All right, come back. No, I'm gonna say my part, you can say your part. Most of this is empty lots. So basically, if they give it to you for $1, then you're going to have to build a building that costs about, to build a building in New York City costs $800, $900, $1 million. Then you're gonna have to try to get a loan to build like that. So, yeah, I know we're heading back to the 70s and 80s when the city was giving away for $1, but that's not this program. That doesn't exist any longer.
So if the developer pays $50,000 a day, that means the units have to sell for more. And the purpose is not to have the units sell for more. We want to have the units sell for as low as possible. Or the city would then have to take the $50,000 and put it in one pocket, and out of the other pocket would take out $50,000 and put it into the subsidy in the deal. So that's why it's at $1 to not have to throw more. It doesn't make sense for the city to take the money that it just received from the developer and then have to give it back to the developer so the developer can keep the cost down to the buyer. It is about keeping the cost down to the buyer, not to put money in the city's pocket.
Next question, do a commercial property owner have to go through investors/developers to develop a project envisioned for generational wealth? We understand. Who asked that question?
I think I may understand. So I think there are a lot of scams going around where people are saying they'll joint venture with people, and then a lot of times these people end up losing their houses. So I think I would probably avoid something like that.
Next question, will clusters 1 through 3 projects be determined/selected by lottery? How much will the subsidy be? Will there also be a tax abatement? So y'all didn't follow the rules. So you got one question. You put 3 cards, you put it all on one card. So, yeah, I think we did. For the cluster, we already said that's home ownership, so that's really gonna be based upon, do you qualify?
That's the NIHOP program.
That's the NIHOP program. You know, do you qualify for that? Will there also be a tax abatement? I think the answer is yes. We're not sure. We'll have to get back to you on that one.
Mr. Bierak, do you know?
I would expect there to be an abatement. The tax abatement, sorry, so with the reform with the 421-A, right, that's meant for multifamily rental buildings. So I'm not sure which tax caveat this would fall under because they did have abatements for small homes. So we'd have to double check it when they move this forward. Yeah, so Yeah, because it makes a big difference in your out-of-pocket for the early years. So, but they'll know soon enough when it's put out there to confirm. And we could probably have someone reach out to an HPD to confirm it even sooner.
Thank you. Next question, what is one goal of this meeting, Town Hall? What we wanted to do was let you know the different programs that come before Community Board 3 and let you know the influence that we may or may not have on projects that are being developed in this district. For you to understand that every project is not the same, every project is a different process. So we explained what rezoning was, what a ULURP is, what's MIH, what's fresh. For example, with the fresh, that's private development. So that's someone who builds and then they say, you know what, I want additional space, additional stories to build, so I'm gonna do a fresh market. And within a fresh application, all they have to do is just notify us. There is no vote by us. But as Ms. Penn stated, when a fresh application comes before us, we vet that project in the development of that building. That is what we do. So if you want to know exactly what the Housing Land Use does, start attending our committee meetings. They meet the second Wednesday of every month. And you will know about before everyone else does any projects that are coming before Community Board 3. And we meet the Community Board office at 6:30, second Wednesday. So the committee meeting, they meet the community board office, which is the next building, right above the post office. Our next full board meeting is Monday. We normally meet down here, but Monday's meeting is going to be at Pleasant Grove Baptist Church around the corner of Fulton and Howard. Next question, supportive housing. Mr. Ross, you want to come on up? Is the number of supported housing being created equally across the board in all communities? There goes question B. Are long-term residents of the community prioritize recipients of supported housing in their indigenous communities?
I think I can answer the part B about,
Yeah, so we were trying to decide that. I did some research with open data and HPD, and we're not allowed to get that information exactly where they're actually located because it's an issue regarding with their personal privacy. So these are things that we know what the data is, but we don't know exactly where they actually are. You can look on open data.
No.
All right, so yeah, you can look on open data, but we really don't know exactly where the facilities are. But we believe that it's going to be equally distributed throughout all the boroughs within New York City.
Let me just expand on them. Take that. So when it comes to supportive housing, the community board office, we know where the locations are. But we're not supposed to basically discuss because sometimes of privacy issues, because some of the supportive housing could be domestic violence victims, things of that nature. We're not allowed to discuss where they are located. I will say this, Community Board 3 does have the most supportive housing throughout New York City. So what we have done is there has been a pushback by this community board for the fair share policy to be really enacted and for other communities to do their part in dealing with the social issues that are taking place, within New York City. Just real quick, a couple of years ago, they tried to put a shelter on the corner of Bedford and Halsey. 2 years ago, we fought back and was successful in preventing that from happening because of, because we just have, an influx, the majority of supportive housing within New York. We do our part, is what I'm saying. Bed-Stuy does its part to help the most vulnerable community. It's up to other communities, now they have to do their part also.
yeah, just briefly, I think there is usually a community preference also, or is there a community preference for your supportive housing, 50%?
So yes, there is, yes.
Okay.
So, right, so for supportive, there is community preference, basically community board, I think it's 30%, has to go to CDP residents, but if it's with DHS, but if DHS, Department of Homeless Services are bringing individuals in, that's their clientele, and that's not based upon whether they live in Bed-Stuy or not. But because sometimes it's mixed, it'll be like, formerly homeless individuals, then it'll be low income. So the low income part, that's community board 3 preference. But the individuals who may be homeless, formerly homeless, that's based upon the DHS clientele. They don't have to necessarily be from CB3. Next question, how does someone find out about purchasing a unit that is dedicated for supportive housing, especially the atrium summit? That question, like you know, live in there, in an apartment there?
Yeah.
Right, so the applications are not out yet. So when they do come out, they just into the community board, you know, we'll post it, we'll have that meetings. We make the community board, this is about one thing I tell everyone, you know, I hope you wrote your email address is nice and neat, so you can make the community board equalized. You know, if you're into social media, go to our Facebook page, go to our website. A lot of times we try to get some of these develop our community-based organizations to be in charge of the lottery, to run the lottery system. Yes, so we're comfortable that it's being run fairly for our community. So no, when stuff comes out, we get it right away, that they're required to let us know about it, and then we'll put the applications out.
We ask that it's marketed.
Say that again?
We ask that it's marketed in certain publications.
Yes, right, correct. So we've got to be marketing certain publications, maybe Our Time Press, any local newspaper, you know, throughout the community of Bedford Stuyvesant. But that one's not out yet. How do I find out about how to volunteer joining BKCB3? Just CB.
Show up.
Just show up. So that's a good question though, actually, because all our meetings are open to the public. Like, there is no such thing as a closed community board 3 meeting unless you deal with personnel issues. So you have the New York State open meeting law, like all our meetings are open to the public. You can join the committee, and if you have consistent attendance, you can be a voting member of that committee. Anything that a city agency is looking to do in Bedford Stuyvesant has to go through our committees first. So we always are having meetings with whether it's developers, with housing, there's Parks Department, we have the Parks Commissioner, like next Wednesday, we're having a town hall about all our parks in the district. So please, just go to our website, you'll see when the committees meet. I see some of our chairs are here. Ms. Collins, who's the chair of our Landmarks Committee. We have our Education Youth Committee. I see Mr. Marion Little over there, he's the chair of our Parks Committee. If you're interested in parks, Mr. Little, raise your hand, please. That's Mr. Little, he's the chair of our Parks Committee. Omaha was the earliest, he's the chair of our Education Committee. So all our things open to the public, so please, just go to our website. They meet the same time every month, but they don't meet July and August.
That was my question, but what is your website?
The website, well, I'll give it to you. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I'll give it to you. Gotta look at my card. Next question. I'll get to you. For night, how does someone interested in personal development home get a property? It's also allotted what website to sign up. I think we answered that one. But when it does become available, trust me, you'll be the first to know, because they actually have to come back before the community, but they'll come to our Housing Land Use Committee when the project is ready for development. No, she on the phone, I didn't think that kind of me. Just saying. We still live streaming? You know,
The website is www.cb3brooklyn.org. That's CB, the number 3, brooklyn.org.
trust me, I'm used to being called all types of things. How will sanitation, infrastructure, roads, and other public service accommodate all of these new residents? That is a super great question. So I'm glad you asked that. I'm so glad you asked that, because that's our next project that we're going to be working on. It came to me because National Grid asked me, I'm a national liaison, they asked about development coming to Bed-Stuy. And I gave them a list of developments, and I said, why? Because they're not going to be able to heat us, give us any energy? You know, she said, that's why I'm asking you. And actually, as of right now, National Grid, if you build a project right now, and you put the application in for National Grid for gas service, they can't do it right now. because they applied for a new pipeline and DEC, the state agency, at this point rejected it. And because they rejected it, right now, National Grid cannot provide any new gas service. If the application's already in, they can do it. But any new application that goes in, until that pipeline gets approved, they can't provide new gas service. Like that's how one of my friends called me up, he was building a building, like he didn't know. And I had to tell him about it. That's what we are now. That's a great question, because my meeting last week with my city agencies, I gave all of these developments to them. So that's the Department of Transportation, MTA, Parks, Department of Buildings, all of them. And I want them to come back to me with what are their plans for Bed-Stuy for the next 3 to 5 to 10 years to deal with the influx of population growth that we're going to have. On the corner of Fulton and Franklin alone, you know, that was a problem. Remember, we're just showing you guys what comes before Community Board 3. It's not all development that's taking place. The private development does not come before us. And this is only a sample.
Can I just, I want to add two projects just to address what he's talking about. So there are a couple of private projects in Fulton and Bedford. I think one of them is going to be about 400 something units.
Yes, that's the former slave theater, which is private land, private development, and they're doing something called shared living, and they're building 350 to 400 units. Right across the street from it, where the big 99-cent store was, that which is gone, which has been knocked down, they're doing shared living also. And that's another 300 units. You got Cascade, the former Cascade laundry factory on the corner of Myrtle and Varsity, that's 9 buildings going up. Then the next block right there, we already told you, we're building 776 between Marshall and Nostrand. The van car is between Marshall and Nostrand. Even one of the Nighthawk projects is between Marshall and Nostrand. So, yes, we need to know what the MTA is going to do. One of our budget requests this year is to reopen the Bedford end of the Nostrand Avenue A line. You can't have one station entrance on the entrance and exit. We got thousands of people, and there's an emergency. What's going to happen? I talked to DEP. All this development going up. Our water sewer line can't handle all this development of the water and sewer line. Department of Health, when they start digging, them rats are coming.
Yeah, rats are already here.
And they're already here, you're right. You know. So every agency has to have a plan. So we're not, Community Board 3, we're not waiting until the emergency happens. We're going to be addressing that now. So in the next fall and spring of fall of this year, spring of next year, we will have future town halls with city agencies to discuss what are their plans to deal with this influx of a population that we're about to get in Bedford Stuyvesant.
That was my question.
Great question.
I'm just wondering if is the city concerned about that in terms of capping off? Is the city, that was my question, is the city concerned with that in terms of capping off the amount of new developments allowed? Because at some point.
The amount of what?
Amount of new developments allowed, because at some point it becomes a population issue, there's hundreds of thousands of people.
As long as they're empty lots, especially private land, and the zoning allows them to build housing, they're able to build housing. You know, that's just what it is. That's what, when you talk about zoning earlier, so you have manufacturing zoning, you have residential zoning, you have commercial zoning. As long as it allows residential zoning, they can build. But let me say this. Community Board 3, you gotta understand the zoning we actually down-zoned this community. Along Fulton, along Myrtle, there was no height limit until we rezoned. So we could be looking like downtown Brooklyn. But the rezoning we did along our commercial corridors, for Fulton we did 10 stories. City planning wanted 15 to 18 stories. We wanted 8, the compromise was 10. If they wanted that along Myrtle also, all along Atlantic Avenue. So we down-zoned on our commercial strips and we did contextual zoning on our residential blocks. You cannot go taller than 5 stories on our brownstone residential blocks. So you won't have, if you go to certain neighborhoods, you have the short building, the middle finger building, short building. Right? Y'all know what I'm talking about. You won't have that in our community. So because you only go 5 stories. And the reason we did 5 stories, I know most brownstones are 3 stories, but the reason we did 5 stories is because you have 5-story brownstones and we had to bring them into compliance. So please remember that we down-zoned in Bedford Stuyvesant and we did contextual zone. So that's why, yeah, they can go 10 stories on foot, but remember, there was no limit at one time. There was no limit. So if the lot could do a 40-story building, a developer could get a 40-story building before we rezone if they got the paperwork in on time. So we downsized, so just please remember that. That's 10 more minutes. How can we best prepare future generations for preserving their rights to a community where they were born and bred? Leave that one to me, okay. I think one of the first steps is participating by coming to this meeting, by finding out what's coming to the community, making sure you're qualified. There are a lot of programs, the financial services program within Bedford, Stuyvesant. We have services here. A lot of times we say, well, there's no service. There are services here. So I think, we need to tell our young people we got to prepare them. Whether they want to do home ownership, a co-op condo, we need to prepare them now financially, at a young age of what they need to be doing, to be able to stay in this community. I mean, for myself, I got my house through a program, 14, 15 years ago. But we prepared, my wife and I prepared for it by saving, and going to those financial courses, learning what we need to do to be able to purchase a home. So I think we need to make sure we get that information out to our people about the different services that are available to us.
Just to expand on what Mr. Butler said, I think the other thing that we could do is to follow up on estate planning. Because I know a lot of times in our culture, we don't really plan for what's going to happen with the next generation. And in the past, a lot of properties were lost because it wasn't adequate planning. So that's another thing that we should focus on.
Right about that. What is the requirement to build on a RFP? So I guess you have what's the requirement to build on one of to get an RFP? What's the requirement what qualifies you for the RFP? Well, RFP stands for Request for Proposal, which is something that's put out by. Basically, you have a unique opportunity when it comes to these three properties right here, because we're having a say-so in the development of the RFP. Usually, HPD will develop the RFP on their own. They'll see land, and they'll say, you know what, we want the RFP to say it has to be this sort of housing, and it has to be at this income level, so that it's going to get this sort of funding. They'll do that on their own, and so we don't have a say-so in that 99.9% of the time. We get it once they put the RFP out and pick someone. They pick the person, the developer who gets the RFP. But in this situation, for these properties, we have a say-so in the development of the RFP. So if we want it to be senior housing, we'll say we want it to be senior housing. It's going to be mixed income, it's going to be mixed income. We want to say low income, we can say low income. These are several big lots where you have the opportunity. This is why I keep put this flyer up, June 26th. Take this flyer, give it out in your community. That's what this meeting is going to do. It's going to be about developing this RFP. This RFP is coming out at the end of the year. And when they put it out, then they will have a say on picking the developer, but also the council members. They have somewhat to say so too in picking a developer on these projects, not the community board. Are fresh food markets going to be affordable for low-income residents? Great question. Do they have to accept EBT, etc.? How do developers account for this? I'm a fresh person.
I'm not 100% sure about the EBT question, but yes, it will be affordable. It will be in competition of the other supermarkets in the neighborhood. They have to stay competitive in order to stay in business, right? So yes, it will be affordable. I'll get back to you about the EBT question. Whoever asked the question, just come up to me after the meeting, give me your name, and I'll get back to you on that question.
Just to add to what the young lady said, I believe it's going to be like a restrictive covenant. So even if a business that's running a fresh food market goes out of business, they'll have to come back with another fresh market. So again, to reiterate what she was saying, if they're not competitive, they're not going to survive there, but we'll have to have another fresh market come in.
So we just have two questions left. Before I just wanted the people who talk about joining community board, I don't know if you know Beth, Danica, Lisa, and Orlando. They are community residents who serve on the Housing Land Use Committee. Community board, there are 50 members who are selected by, who are put on by the borough president and the local council members, but they're not part of those 50 members. But they're community residents who come to the Housing and Land Use Committee. As you can see, they're very involved with the Housing and Land Use Committee. So this is an example of, like I said, you can join these committees and be very active and involved. Will displaced Bed-Stuy residents have priority in the affordable units under development? Bed-Stuy residents, there is a preference. Anything that's been subsidized by the city, Bed-Stuy residents, I think it's 30% of those units have to go to Bedford-Stuyvesant residents. There's also a preference, I believe, for veterans, certain percentage, I believe, for veterans also, but definitely for Bedford-Stuyvesant residents. There's a 30% of those units will have to go to Bedford-Stuyvesant residents. Last question I have, with the lotteries for affordable housing, will there be any other requirements besides income, such as credit checks and checking bank account balances? Great question. Because NYCHA, who also gets city, state, and federal funding, et cetera, does not do credit checks and bank accounts.
Because that makes people.
Well, I know they do require credit check.
Right.
That was me, because the thing is, that was my question.
Go ahead.
And the reason I'm asking that question is because it makes it unfair. If you get called for a housing guard, NYCHA, if you get called for NYCHA, the only thing NYCHA wants to know is bring those pay stubs in. Period. Do you have a criminal background? Right, of course. But when you say affordable housing, right, and you want it to be equal, right, and you're still getting city, state, and federal funding, which NYCHA does also, and these developers are getting that funding, right? They're getting that tax abatement, right? Why are you excluding people based upon their credit, based upon what they have in their bank accounts? It's not fair. So I don't know who to speak to about it, but it's something that we need to deal with.
No, it's a great question. We're gonna expand on this question.
I want to explain. That is an excellent question. There's really two types of housing, okay? HUD subsidy, which is rental assistance housing, and then housing that doesn't have rental assistance, okay? So we talked about Section 202 senior housing. There's a lot of that older in the neighborhood. HUD housing is similar, and people heard of Section 8, right? Section 8 housing. So in that housing, if you make nothing, the Section 8 will pay your rent. So you are only paying 30% of income to rent. But in a lot of the other housing, the rent is the rent, and there is no rental subsidy. And so the rent might be $900, and it's $900 if you don't have a Section 8. They have to make sure that you can afford it, the same way that a bank makes sure that you can afford a mortgage. And so for that kind of housing, they're looking at your credit. They're looking at a few other things, only because in the event that you have a history of non-payment, there's no Section 8 that makes up the difference, okay? And so some of the projects that you saw are gonna have a Section 8, like the one at Sumner. I'm not involved in that project, but I know that all of those units are gonna have a Section 8.
Yes.
So the residents there never have to worry that the rent's gonna go up and they can't afford it.
Right.
But some of them, it's just the rent is the rent. And if you can't afford it, then the project has problems. And so I'm not excusing it. I just want to explain the
Because you see the
difference.
perspective, like you're excluding people. I'm good enough to get into NYCHA with no credit check and no.
Well, again, NYCHA has the rental subsidy. So that's the difference. How they treat it differently.
But still,
So for your protection, so you don't default on your mortgage and lose your home. It's for your protection.
Then we're gonna hear from, Mr. Honorable Ned Roberts. No, so let's finish this up. So, I mean, I know you like the answer, but.
No, I don't like the answer, I just want to. It's for so when you talk about opportunity, in the end, it's really not opportunity. So you don't have to worry about these things, so you're not even gonna be allowed to live here. But you negotiate another.
So HPD has reformed to a certain extent. So some of the criteria that was more harsh, it's lessened somewhat. So I don't have exact answers, but HPD under then Commissioner Vicky Bean had actually looked at where they can loosen some of that criteria in terms of the lottery selection. So like, for example, credit and other things are not as stringent as they were before HPD enacted these changes. Those changes were done about a year or so ago. I'm not sure if the details are on their website, but it is not as stringent as it was. I don't know exactly where it's at, but the city got it. They got it under Commissioner Bean at the time that in order to make the housing within reach for folks, you had to do a little bit more than just the income. You had to deal with some of the other criteria to ease it. But I don't have the exact answer, but it might be on HPD's website. Or you have like housing service providers in the area, right? So whether it's Bed-Stuy, Restoration, they may have folks there, Bridge Street, Impact Brooklyn. So depending where you live, if you're in the realm that you think you want to go for lottery housing, meet with those organizations and they should be able to give you a good handle on where they're at with the latest reform.
There is a financial empowerment center right upstairs to help people to fix their credit.
Well, thank you very much. Give yourselves a great hand. Those were wonderful questions. They were great questions. And I hope you got some good answers. And a good way to end is with a word from our former Assembly Council member, the Honorable Lynette Robinson.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Penn. First of all, I'd like to say to Chairman Plateau, Chairwoman Penn, and the committee, and of course, Mr. Butler, and to the community board, 3 members. You must be congratulated for this wonderful, wonderful forum that you pulled off this evening. I was excited about it and to hear all of the information. Any other time, I would not be out in the rain, okay? Before, I could hop and skip and run around and whatnot, but when it starts raining, the bones get a little achy. But I do want to say this was a wonderful, wonderful presentation and commend you for that. Certainly, I was anxious to hear what was going on. I see all the buildings going up in the community. When I was working up in Albany, sometimes you would miss something until you would come to a meeting and then you would hear all the information. I think it's so positive that you took the time out to put together such a very strong presentation for the community. A couple of questions that I heard. One, I want to just remind you that on June 25th, there is an election. There's an election. There is an election. There's a primary election on June 25th. So I want you to be reminded about that. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is you talked about the community, the census. We must be very clear about the census. The census must be filled out. So when we talk about the infrastructure of the community, we will not have representatives, we will not have infrastructure or anything else if we do not fill out the census. Because we are one of the undercounted communities. So please be mindful of that. So tell your friends and neighbors and everybody. The other thing is that everybody must be registered in voting. We must be registered in voting. Your children in your homes, whoever you have in your house, should not be coming into your home and they're not registered in voting and participating. They should not. Finally, I have to say to you, when we talk about preserving and protecting generational wealth, that means that you have to do the estate planning like Mr. Plateau said. You have to have your wills in order. We can't talk about anything if you don't have your paperwork in order, all of that will be gone. And you must talk to your children and your children's children so that they know and understand they got to protect and preserve the community wealth. The houses that you have gotten a hold of through your blood, sweat, and tears, or your ancestors left them for you, they're going away because our children are not paying attention and they think that someone is coming and offering them $1 million, that's a lot of money. That'll keep you for a minute. But in the meantime, the generational wealth is gone. So we protect and preserve our community, our wealth, and our legacy by making sure that our papers are in order. Because that will be gone. Because people are swooping up, they're coming, they're walking up into people's homes and talking to them. And before you know it, they're telling people that you need to go to South or you're going to go back to the Caribbean. You know, and everybody is not doing that. So I say to you in a very, very earnest way, please pay attention. That's what the brownstones do. They knock on your neighbor's door and say, look, you're at risk of losing your property. Let's pay attention to our neighbors because some of them did not realize that they had to pay, their homes were paid for, that they would have to pay property taxes and water bill. If those things are not paid, then someone is looking for you with a tax fee. So please, let's pay attention to our neighbors and make sure that we continue to look at what's happening in our community in a greater way. Thank you so very much.
So just to wrap up, first I want to thank Richard Barrett from Borough Hall for his input this evening. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. From St. Nick, Mr. Remind me. Hello. What's your name again? Frank Lang. Frank Lang from St. Nick. And please give yourself a round of applause. Thank you all for coming out this evening. Let me just say the upcoming meetings, once again, June 4th, this Monday, the community board meeting will be held at 3rd. Thank you, y'all paying attention. June 3rd in the community board meeting. And then after that, June 24th is our second meeting of the month. Don't forget, June 26th is this meeting. And then the next housing land use meeting, I believe, the second Wednesday, that should be June 12th, I believe. June 12th, the next housing land use committee meeting. So thank you again, everyone. Please get home safe. And does food never take food with you? Take the food, the cookies, everything. Got stuff left? Yeah, right in front of here. Everybody stand right here behind the podium.